All right, Psalm 97. Let's call this one Seasons of Light. In this psalm, that 3 times seems to mention or allude to the clarity that comes along with God's presence, linking it to righteousness, beginning in verses 1 through 5, where it says, "The Lord reigns, let the earth rejoice. Let the coastlands be glad. He dwells in thick darkness. However, righteousness and justice are the foundations of his throne," or his reign. So it's going to go on to say that fire goes before him to consume his adversaries. Lightnings light his earth. The earth sees and trembles. The mountains melt like wax. As in verses 6 through 7, it's going to say the heavens proclaim his righteousness. Once again, going back to what we noticed in the last chapter, where it's not just the people who feel relief at his presence, but it is all creation. As it's going to go on to say in those verses, the peoples glorify him. Idolaters, however, are put to shame. Worship him, all you gods, lesser gods, little g. As verses 8 and 9 are going to go on to say that Zion hears and is glad. The daughters of Judah rejoice. Why? Because of his judgments. Once again, the quality and the clarity of what he represents. As it's going to close out those verses 8 and 9, by saying he is most high over the earth. And again, little g gods, as verses 10 through 12 are going to close out the psalm by saying, "You who love the Lord hate evil. He preserves his righteous from the wicked. Light is sown for the righteous, joy for the upright. Rejoice, O you righteous. Give thanks." In the psalm that reminds me of at least 2 things. One, the fact that the ESV, the English Standard Version, says that the light isn't simply given, it is sown. And that term sown draws on the agricultural metaphor that suggests it doesn't simply happen overnight. There are some forms of light or clarity that may take time to develop. But just as seed must be nurtured and cultivated in some circumstances to actually produce fruit, understand likewise that there are some things that God is planting on our heart that if we do not nurture them and cultivate them in the right way, we might lose our ability to see in seasons where he makes his revelations otherwise clear. How do we know? Because Jesus taught a parable of the sower, seed that was sown amongst 4 types of soil, along the path, quickly picked up by the birds, amongst the rocks where it sprouted up quickly, but didn't have enough root to last for very long, and then amongst the thorns where it sprouted up, maybe lasted a little bit longer, but the cares of life made it unfruitful. And then finally, the seed that fell amongst the good soil and produced a great crop. Understanding in this passage when it says that light is sown, that may likewise be drawing on that principle that there are some forms of understanding that have to be nurtured for them to actually produce the kind of clarity with which we have the potential to see. Reminding me likewise that just as this psalm uses the term righteousness in at least 2 contexts. One, the righteousness of God, but likewise the righteousness of his people. It's not just enough that he project clarity. It also seems to be calling us to project clarity as well, reminding me of times I will click on a video streamed on my laptop and I'll see the haze on it and be like, wait a minute, that's not 4K clarity. I don't understand all the different resolutions, but I know that my eye immediately picks up on something like 480 when I'm expecting it to be in a higher resolution. And so understand that in much the same way that God brings relief through bringing a clear picture of what right and wrong is all about, even though it may be difficult for us to live up to his standard, God willing at the very least, we are not content to project a low resolution image of right and wrong, but rather we genuinely seek to have him project a clearer and clearer image of right and wrong through us, something we sometimes describe simply as projecting a clearer and clearer image of integrity.